From our New England Digital Broadcast Center in the United States, welcome to the Boston Institute for Business Leaders and Entrepreneurs supporting global communication and leadership. My name is Ambassador Professor David K. Ewan, representing the United States in global communications and entrepreneurial studies in business consulting, education resources, and technology support. This is a civilian office. In this award-winning position, I've held this office since December of 2014. My office works with various industries in Asia, the Middle East, Europe, Russia, and Latin America. We are staffed by a crowdsourced, scalable, on-demand workforce in the four departments of technology, operations, client relations, and audit compliance. My message to you is driven by the Holy Spirit, guided by God, to discuss the difficult challenges we as a world population face today. It is the duty of our civilian office to report on areas of concern with relevance to global business, education, and technology. The consultative institutions that fall under the Boston Institute are Forest Academy, Bravehearted Academy to the Nations, and the PACE Institute. Our outreach goes to youth, adults, in business, education, and technology. Again, it's a civilian office. Let me first tell you about Forest Academy. Forest Academy focused on digital multimedia technologies to use today's resources for improved global communication. The Professor Lecture Series, lasting 11 years from 2004 to 2015 at 52 venues in the 7 states of New York and New England, had solidified technical understanding of how technology plays a role in today's businesses. The Bravehearted Academy, this is the second one. The Bravehearted Academy name comes from Bravehearted Ministry. Bravehearted was birthed in my heart for the name of a ministry at the Resurrection Center in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts here in the United States. The Bravehearted Ministry is what I head up to support a ministry for men at the Resurrection Center located in the Northeast. It is at the direction of the pastors of the Resurrection Center. The academy itself is not a ministry, but rather an institution with global Christian values with a reach that extends to Asia, the Middle East, Europe, Russia, and Latin America. The Bravehearted Academy is independent of Bravehearted Ministry and Resurrection Center, allowing the traversing through the storms of geopolitics in today's society as it relates to business, education, and technology. The PACE Institute, that's P-A-A-S-E, P-A-A-S-E. The PACE Institute is a consortium of professionals in astronomy, astrophysics, and space explorers. The name is an acronym representing the consortium, along with Harvard University, the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, and Green Bank Observatory. The PACE Institute is recognizing 70 years of radio astronomy exploration following the 1951 detection of neutral hydrogen in the Milky Way galaxy on March 25th by Harold Doc Ewan and Edward M. Purcell. My father, Doc Ewan, received his PhD from Harvard University for the detection of this spectral line and his thesis, Radiation from Galactic Hydrogen at 1420 megacycles per second, that launched the United States into quantitative and measurable effect of deep space exploration. All presented here today is a consolidation of information already reported, but presented in a way that gives relevant understanding of where we are and where we are going. Our information comes from the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, Reuters Technology News, Associated Press Technology News, Deloitte Insights, Forbes News, Bloomberg News, the Pew Research Center for Religious and Public Life, and the Christian Broadcast Network. The State of the World address to the nations will be presented quarterly starting in the fall of 2020 with this message beginning today. In each season, new topics will be presented. In the fall of 2020, right now, just before the presidential election, our office has chosen not to be political, as this would be considered a distraction from the debate that would follow. Our goal is to report already reported information and consolidate it in an enterprise manner. In this State of the World address to the nations, the following topics will be presented. COVID-19 coronavirus. That's number one. Number two, economic workforce development. Number three, science and technology. And number four, religion in America and faith. And also religion around the world. I've chosen to speak about theology as I am soon to graduate from Harvard University with a certificate in theology topics specific to Christianity through its scriptures. The state of Christianity will be a common discussion in my regular State of the World addresses. So let me give an introduction. The world is changing faster than anyone can give a concrete status. Everyone has an opinion and not everyone agrees. The prediction has a degree of uncertainty due to variables that are constantly moving. The moment a prediction is presented, the world has already changed, and that causes debate. Today, I'll share my thoughts, but I don't expect everyone to agree. What I do expect that it will give something to think about with consideration that the world is a fast-moving train. It's a fast-moving train that we are watching zip right by us. We see the train now and know where it is now, but moments later, it has already gone. This State of the World address is just like that. It represents a condition or status as if the train is right in front of us. The moving variables of prediction are like the different tracks the train can go on after it zips right by us. Today's discussion is to give thought as to what track the world will likely go on after today. Let me begin with COVID-19 coronavirus. There is new information coming out every single day. And the predictions of 6 months ago are totally different than today. Many people have been asking me about the coronavirus status. I have been more concerned about how it all started. At the beginning of the year 2020, the pharmaceutical companies and scientists were talking about a vaccine for therapeutic solutions that would result in about a year and a half. That would have brought a solution to the middle of the year 2021. What actually happened is the governments all got involved by giving promises distracting from what was already happening. Now that the pandemic has nearly completed its first year, we find out that with the pharmaceutical companies and scientists were saying at the beginning of 2020, they were right all along. The pharmaceutical companies were on track with what they had promised at the beginning of 2020. The promise to have a solution in early 2020 was less realistic than a promise of a solution in the middle of 2021. That being said, it is likely The confusion and distraction will be driven by government continually, as in the past, to give a perception of a true reality as dictated by the pharmaceutical company rushing for the best vaccine. Already, Russia has reported the registration of what they call Sputnik 5, which is an untested vaccine, with many citizens who I've spoken to personally. They do not trust this. This is the first of many examples of vaccine and therapeutic companies working to provide the first launch of something just to be first. It is true that we are in a rush because of the mortality rate that has stricken us already. The time to conclude is longer than what the general population may believe. At whatever point in time a true vaccine or true therapeutic medicine is fully approved and gets sufficient peer review, and also the third and final phase of testing is fully complete and approved as well, there's still a long road ahead. There is the manufacturing, the distribution, and the administration of this medicine. As we have already seen in 2020, there will be false promises and misdirection. Throughout the duration of the pandemic, there have been procedures put in place to mitigate the spread of the virus. This involves sanitation, social distancing, and wearing masks. This has not been accepted by all citizens, which results in behavior that has caused the spread of the virus and perhaps has the greatest resistance among the population. As for what can be predicted in the future, the public reports from government and pharmaceutical companies are influenced by politics and urgency. The public information is too distorted for me to give an accurate prediction of the outcome. In many ways, the outcome can't be predicted as the result has a dependency on consumer behavior to medicine. Whatever does happen, changes in our lives have occurred, and they may continue after a future time that COVID-19 is considered gone, if there is such a word we can apply to that. Here is a list of some things that have already been put in place. For example, increased online learning, more remote working solutions, changes in professional sports. Festival holiday events have been canceled and restructured. The Olympics have been canceled and they will be restructured. International sports have been canceled, such as the Boston Marathon and the New York City Marathon, and they will be restructured in the future. High school proms were canceled. Graduation ceremonies have been canceled and replaced with a mailed diploma. Reduction of travel and tourism. Wearing masks and social distancing. Do you remember the toilet paper shortage? What else have we seen? We've seen things like grocery store food deliveries, restaurant food deliveries. That was existing before the pandemic. And now it has grown, and I believe the population of that type of service will continue. There are other type of services similar to the restaurant delivery programs. They will continue as well. Let's talk about economic workforce development. Prior to the start of this decade, the global workforce has seen a shift to a greater level of entrepreneurialism with freelancers and a crowdsourced, scalable, on-demand workforce. More people are taking their own prosperity into their own hands by relying on their own creativity and innovation as it relates to their career path. This process of change accelerated during the pandemic as many traditional jobs were obliterated. More people got involved in a digital online world using applications like Zoom. See, everyone thought Zoom was new. Did you know Zoom has been around since 2011? But more people are using applications like Zoom and Google Meet and Microsoft Teams. And of course, there's the collaboration tools like Bittrex24 and Slack. But they've been using these applications like Zoom, for example, for conferences and much more. Many people are getting accustomed to a work at home in either their traditional jobs or their own entrepreneurial ventures. Either way, the workforce globally has changed, and it will continue to change even beyond the pandemic. The rate of this change can be likened to a fast moving event that is on a straight track moving toward the future. That is where we are now. More companies are taking advantage of freelancers and a crowdsourced workforce resources to take advantage of lower cost labor, and they can free up the real estate of their offices so they save money there as well. As universities and vocational schools prepare the next generation for careers, they'll need to include the spirit of entrepreneurial spirit as it relates to the innovation and creativity in individualism. Our future generation is forced to become more independent, partly because this has been a growing trend over many years. Another reason is the pandemic, and the new structure of the labor workforce is forcing the acceleration of this trend. This ability to adapt and fit into the workforce requires a significant amount of change to the education we provide our young students looking for a prosperous future. There is a great example in history where the workforce environment had to change by the elimination of common jobs. There was a time when a person would work lighting lamp posts so that horses could see where to go at night. This involved climbing ladders and lighting the lamp and then moving on to the next one. Later, the person would have to blow out the lamp post so that the fuel was not wasted during the daylight hours. Then, in the year 1879, the light bulb was invented and patented in 1880 by Thomas Edison. The physical job to light the lamppost was eliminated by a light switch. It is the earliest observable time in modern history where technology eliminated a job so easily, but new jobs were either created or expanded. The man who climbed the ladder could manufacture light bulbs or work for the electric company to expand the network. The light bulb was new technology. The electric company had a greater need and was expanding. Prior to 1880, the world was only lit up by fire, which was limited light. After the invention of the light bulb, the world was no longer in darkness. The world had drastically changed. Universities had night school. Manufacturing expanded into the night, certainly after the assembly line methodology was introduced in the year 1914 by Henry Ford. The transition from the 1800s to the 1900s changed lifestyle drastically. It was a good thing, but it required significant change to people's lifestyle and awareness of the direction of humankind. This is why our office is involved with education and lifelong learning. The change to humankind after the invention of the light bulb can be likened to the change of humankind after the introduction of COVID-19 and the global pandemic. The world is now going to go through a drastic change. It is something that must be accepted because there is no other alternative. There is no possible way of going back to the way things were. Science and technology drives economics. We're going to talk now about science and technology. Let me begin by saying that science and technology drives economics and lifestyle by giving a condition of increased adaptation, or the ability to adapt. For example, the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic is being addressed in more vastly different ways than the Spanish flu pandemic over 100 years ago. The mitigation processes are shared through today's technologies, allowing all people to be consistent with the information they receive. Economics is managed more by technology than ever before due to the complexities of global infrastructure of macroeconomics. As science and technology evolves, then our economics and lifestyle will evolve as well. Global economies will work more effectively with better controls in a predictive behavior modeling, allowing for preventive measures of a recession or other disastrous outcomes. That doesn't mean a recession can be eliminated, but the work towards that can happen. Our lifestyle will be improved with the medical science and technology conveniences. We have already seen how the 2020 COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic is very different from the Spanish flu of over 100 years ago. Everyone around the world knows what is going on, and scientists are frantically working with advances not seen a century ago. There's a big difference from now and the past. We live in a culture that is well informed. The first iPhone was released on June 29th in the year 2007, putting handheld computers into people's hands. On November 19, 2007, the first Amazon Kindle ebook reader was released, putting libraries into people's hands. The Google Android mobile operating system was first launched in October of 2008 with the HTC Dream handset. All that was less than 15 years ago. In less than 2 decades, and certainly in most people's lifetime, we have leaped light years ahead in the area of having vast amounts of information in our hands wherever we go. AI, or artificial intelligence, and IoT, or Internet of Things, have been words seen in technology news as of late. With advances in both areas, AI will allow increased evolution in the areas of technology and science on an exponential scale, while IoT will have both interconnected devices in our lives, adding greater conveniences not possible prior and not imagined before today. We have so much to look forward to that is not possible to consider in our thoughts. Think of it this way. I'll tell you a story. I was born in a time when spaceflight was something wondrous for a young boy growing up in an age of space exploration. I was 6 years old when man landed on the moon. Before satellites and astronauts, my father detected hydrogen in interstellar space in 1951, allowing for the mapping of the Milky Way galaxy until later to see other galaxies. That makes me the son of a space explorer. In the 1970s, when Americans seemed to have lost interest in spaceflight, the Apollo program was cut, and many years later, the same demise happened to the Space Shuttle program. With the introduction of SpaceX by Elon Musk Corporation, Enterprises got involved in the space industry in a profitable way so that this venture could continue for a long term. This decade will produce that same excitement of spaceflight and exploration as had been done in the 1960s. Although it took 50 years, the excitement has finally returned. At the Pace Institute, we are planning next year's 70th anniversary of the detection of neutral hydrogen in the Milky Way galaxy. We will be celebrating an important milestone in space exploration that started at Harvard University and will have already been immersed in the return of the excitement of the space exploration in this current decade. In the 1960s, I grew up in a world that was exciting in exploring regions beyond the Earth. Many science fiction television shows and movies such as Star Trek and Star Wars helps bring excitement. In the days of the 2020 COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, that interest has been lost and the excitement has dwindled. I believe with the great efforts of SpaceX and Blue Origin, along with many other companies, will bring that excitement back and have people explore their humanity in new ways that have not been done in the past 20 years. This decade sets the stage of accelerated technology that will evolve humankind's thinking of what humanity is. I say that because history repeats itself. We've seen an evolution of technology, and we've lived through the emotions and the flavor and the taste of that. So this is what I'm talking about. Inclusive with this is a religion and faith will be intertwined in people's souls as they understand how God plays a role in all of this. Because as we explore regions outside of the world, and I'm talking about the planet Earth, then people will start looking at the universe and who created the universe. It was my father who discovered hydrogen in space, and he had said he believes in God because he got to see the universe that was created. And that was because of the work that he did in 1951 on March 25th, when he was the first man to detect neutral hydrogen in the Milky Way galaxy. That sets the stage for us to be able to create measurements and to take radio frequencies from space and convert them into pictures so that we could create the images of galaxies beyond our world. So now let me go to our next topic, which is the change in religion. Many people have turned away from the routine of receiving regular spiritual guidance for continual growth in their lives. Depending on the culture, this is more or less the trend that's been going on over the past few decades. Faith and religion has become less of a lifestyle, meaning that worship is not embedded as part of a philosophical way of living in order to have the spiritual connection that all of us should have. The distractions of this world that we all live in continue to grow exponentially, making it more difficult for people to have the spiritual guidance that is ongoing or should be ongoing and could develop a lifestyle of worship that is in the foundation of the infrastructure of faith and religion, no matter what the belief is. While the trends are clear, the United States is steadily becoming less Christian and less religiously observant as the share of adults who are not religious grows. The rising share of Americans who say they attend religious services no more than a few times a year, if at all, has been driven by a substantial jump in the proportion who say they never go to church. Today, 17% of Americans say they never attend regular religious services, up from 11% a decade ago. Also, the decline in regular churchgoing is attributed mainly to the shrinking share of Americans who say they attend religious services at least once a week, which was 37% in 2009 and now stands at 31%. In Pew Research Center telephone surveys conducted in 2018 and 2019, 65% of American adults describe themselves as Christians when asked about their religion, down 12 percentage points over the past decade. Meanwhile, the religious unaffiliated share of the population, consisting of people who describe their religious identity as atheists, agnostic, or nothing in particular, now stands at 26%, up from 17% in 2009. Self-described atheists now account for 4% of United States adults, up modestly but significantly from 2% in 2009. Agnostics make up 5% of United States adults, up from 3% a decade ago. And 17% of Americans now describe their religion as nothing in particular, up from 12% in 2009. Members of non-Christian religions also have grown modestly as a share of the adult population. The data shows that just like the rates of religious affiliation, rates of religious attendance are declining. Over the last decade, the share of Americans who say they attend religious services at least once or twice a month dropped by 7 percentage points, while the share who say they attend religious services less often, if at all, has risen by the same degree. Only about 1 in 3 millennials say they attend religious services at least once or twice a month. Roughly 2/3 of millennials, that's 64%, attend worship services a few times a year or less often, including about 4 in 10 who say they seldom or never go. Indeed, there are as many millennials who say they never attend religious services, 22%, as there are who say they go at least once a week, 22%. So here's what we've talked about today. We talked about the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. We talked about the economic workforce development. We talked about science and technology. And we talked about religion in America and how it relates to the world. Because what happens in America is also, to some small degree, a reflection of what's happening in the world. But we didn't get into the deep specifics of that. It's without a doubt that 2020 is a year that will go into the history books. This decade will be in university textbooks and a major course of study as we travel to space, solve the greatest medical mysteries, especially associated with COVID-19 coronavirus, and also redefine our work and life habits and respond to a needed revival to reach God. The year 2019 ended the year 2019 ended an era of stagnation. The pain we go through today is our defining moment that redefines who we are as a humankind community. The technology of communication will bring us closer to others, causing conflict in ways never imagined. It is our trust and faith in God and leaning toward good character and integrity that will pull us out of tragedies. The measurement of our success or failure will be determined in the future when the history books are written. Each one of us has a page in those history books. How do you want your history to be written? My name is Ambassador Professor David K. Ewan of the Boston Institute, representing Forest Academy, Bravehearted Academy, and the Pace Institute. Thank you for joining me on the State of the World address. Join me next time and next year in 2021 when I present the next State of the World address to the nations. I thank you for joining me.